Ah, another day in paradise. Hello trees, hello bush, hello dendro slime, another wonderful day in Gacha.
What's all this little baby gaming? Let me tell you about a real man's game. This game's got swords, it's got monsters, it's got bars and time travel? This ain't your baby's gacha game. When you die in this game, you die forever. Got your favorite waifu and she died, huh? Poof! Now she's space dust!
Well, not exactly, but have you ever wanted a gacha game that didn't just hold your hand or was hardcore and more unforgiving than what you usually see? Nowadays, we see many more games focused on casual players of games, and everything is focused around it. Lots of tutorials, a very simple growth process with everything neatly explained in a compendium, no punishment at all for failure, and yellow paint all over saying where to go with 100 accessibility options.
We're watching a movie. Get your popcorn.
Okay. But what if a game completely threw all of that out of the window and was hard to play and even harder to master with almost no tutorials and possible permanent death of your party members who you've lovingly raised or obtained through a gacha? A game where you can actually experience failure and repercussions for your actions. In this video, I'll be going over a new gacha game called Wizardry Variants Daphne, whose name still makes no sense to me at all since I'm like 40 hours in and I have no idea who the hell Daphne even is. Are we talking about Daphne from Scooby-Doo? Also, this game is sadly only in portrait mode at the moment, so let me make it a little bit easier to watch this video for you. As always, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel as I'll be making more videos like this one, or go to twitch.tv/Jenazad as I stream daily. Wizardry is one old-ass series. Maybe your grandpappy knows it. First released in 1981, it's considered to be the inspiration of most RPG games that have come after. Initially made in America, it had its rights passed around until eventually being bought by a Japanese company. Starting as a super simple dungeon crawler based on Dungeons & Dragons, it is the user play first person and move space by space through a dungeon where you run into monsters and fight in turn-based combat. Somehow, this series has lasted over 40 years until today and just released their new games for phones and soon to be PC as well. Also, this game got $3 million from the Japanese government for development, so I'm glad their tax dollars are being used for a good cause. When beginning, you'll be asked questions, and depending on your answers, eventually be assigned an alignment, whether good, neutral, evil, or gooner. The game then starts with you running from a demon without any hope of escape. No matter where you turn, it's chasing you, and you're low on HP. You're eventually forced to confront this monster, and you're killed instantly. Literal skill issue in the first 5 minutes. But death is not the end for your main character, and as time passes, you eventually begin to grow back your flesh on your bones and resurrect as a ghoul with no memory. Confused, you run into a ghost of a woman named Lulunard, who immediately reminded me of somebody else, but fortunately is actually a really fun and helpful partner to keep around that doesn't waste your time at all. You learn that you have the ability to reverse time of objects or people, which may be how you're currently alive. Once you reach town, you find out the king has been kidnapped by a demon, and they're hiring adventurers to go save him from the dungeon. Obviously, you go with them to save the king, and your journey begins. I will say that the story is somewhat simple, but honestly really good for a gacha game. And I hate gacha game stories. What makes those stories so good is it doesn't feel like it's trying to hit a word limit for a summer break essay or waste your time at all. All the dialogue characters have feel like it matters or is adding to the characters or world. Talking to random NPCs even can uncover new information or relate to your current journey with tips. There's even been a few times where a more seasoned adventurer's advice has actually helped me in the dungeons. It's more of a dark fantasy that isn't afraid to have darker themes. It also has some pretty unique twists for a gacha game that I really didn't see coming and won't spoil just yet, but are genuinely an amazing idea in a gacha game. Now, let's talk about the combat. You can have a party of up to 6 characters made up of the classes Knight, Fighter, Thief, Priest, and Mage, with the main character able to swap to any. The character classes determine the stats and skills they learn, but you can also swap some characters to other classes and learn those skills as well. In combat, you have 2 rows of characters with farther back allies taking less damage from melee weapons or dodging easier, but also needing to use ranged themselves. The combat is fairly simple turn-based strategy. I'm sure many of us have played these types of games before, so it can't be that bad, right? Whoops, you got ambushed. Your whole party just got killed in one turn. You took a fire character into a water enemy? Enjoy taking multiplied damage. Ooh, stuck at the rank up exam and you can't level your party anymore until you beat this really hard boss? Tough luck, get good. You got poisoned with toxin? Well, you didn't level your poison removal enough and it's too powerful to dispel on field. Killed 100 goblins, no sweat? A Korean manhwa regressor goblin main character reborn 1,000 times, who learned the secret Muriam arts and cultivated his chi for 10,000 years showed up and one-shot you. Okay, these enemies are jokes so far.
Fatality.
Never mind. This game can be pretty unforgiving sometimes, and for the average gacha player, it might be a little bit too brutal. Now remember when I said this game has permadeath? It does. You can actually lose your characters forever. But here's the catch. You only really lose them if you fail to understand the system. As you play the game, characters will have a fortitude bar that goes down under certain circumstances and down a lot when they die in combat. When they die, you can choose to revive them by turning back time in combat or later at the church, but it reduces their fortitude by a ton. Now, if their fortitude is too low, they have a chance to turn to dust forever when revived. But here's the thing, you regain fortitude over time even when the character's dead. So as long as you don't play insanely risky all the time with low fortitude, it should be fine. What this ends up doing is essentially making fortitude the energy system in this game, where you can play forever as long as you don't lose too much. Essentially, skill equals more playtime per day, which can go for an entire day if you really want it to. As you learn more about the game and make mistakes, you slowly understand the entire picture, and every little upgrade, level up, or step you take feels valuable. When everything is tough, it makes smaller upgrades and stats or items feel exciting and like you hit the jackpot. This is a feeling that's missing from many games today, not just gacha, the fact that challenges feel difficult, but rewarding. There is, however, one incredibly difficult part of the game, possibly the most hardcore out of everything. Playing the game. Yep, this game is probably the hardest gacha I've ever tried to play due to its an absurd number of bugs and the fact that many phones can't even run it and many emulators crash upon opening the game. Oh, you tried this quest? Now you're locked onto the screen for days of endless crashing and loading. Some poor bastard got teleported behind a locked door for over a week since the game saves where you are at all times. Every day you'd log in for a new patch that'd fix multiple bugs, but maybe not even yours. In the game, you can rename your characters one time when you register them to the guild, but after the first day, I literally just couldn't anymore due to a bug and had to use default names. This game definitely released prematurely and needed more testing. However, most of these issues have actually been fixed by now. Or is what I'd like to say, if they didn't just screw up incredibly hard. The first banner character was named Wandering Princess Lanavale, and there is a normal version of her in the game as well. Both have the same skills and passives, which people thought was weird, but it's basically like a fancy skin and it's a guaranteed way to get her. Neat. Turns out she was supposed to have completely different skills and passives, and they messed it up. So now they have to give more compensation. These poor devs just can't catch a break. I've never heard of a character having a completely incorrect skill set and be released for a month without them fixing or acknowledging it. They shouldn't even have said anything and no one would have known. However, even with all of these issues, I think the game's great and the devs seem to be working hard on it. Also, apparently the game will be getting a PC port, so hopefully that can fix many issues, but if I know anything about Japanese PC ports, it could make Wuthering Waves launch look like the second coming of Christ. Now, let's talk about the gacha system in this game. It's bad, but almost in a weirdly good way. But let me explain the ups and downs of it. First of all, the in-game lore of it is really cool, where your pull currency is bones, and you're taking humans, dwarves, elves, beastmen bones, and turning back time on them to revive ancient heroes from the dead. However, the pull income is horrendous and hard to get, but the silver lining is that the legendary character pull rate is a whopping 5%. Essentially, you get so few pulls, but you have a 1 in 20 chance of it being something great. Also, the shop has some of the worst deals I've ever seen in a gacha, and spending money doesn't feel that great, somehow making Genshin's lack of packs look merciful. The game has a spark system where you can buy the character after 100 pulls, which if their pull rate was better, would be pretty good. But now let me explain that even though the gacha is really bad overall, it somehow also is one of the best I've ever seen for a free-to-play. First of all, you are guaranteed getting at least 2 legendary characters, with one of them actually being a selector as a new player. Also, every character character in the game is pretty useful, and honestly, almost any character has a purpose. When a character is pulled, some of their stats are randomized, and they have a random amount of bonus stats that you can also allocate. So you can pull a 3-star that stats are so juiced, it's on par with your 4-star or even close to a 5-star. I've seen people using the most jank free-to-play characters and doing as well as anyone else and learning the same abilities. Every character has different innate elements and alignments, making some better for certain parties or fights. Every character can also be fed others because they all have a special innate ability that can be taught to others. Now, there is one huge issue with all of this. If you're a giant gooner, this game doesn't have much content to goon to. I know, a gacha game you can't crank to every 10 minutes. Hell, the hottest character I own sacrificed her parents in a demonic ritual and already has an evil god inhabiting her body, so I'm already cucked. Which brings me to my next point, the friendship system. It's much more organic than other games, where after missions, teammates will invite you to drink and ask you questions about the adventure and what can be done better. As you get closer, you learn stories about their past and who they were, and they even start to have nicer lines towards you and smile more in the party. I just thought this was a really unique friendship system and cool to see little details like this, and it gives no rewards, it's just for immersion. But this is also something that makes this game feel more special. It feels more organic than forced. The story feels more real and grounded in the world. Death isn't treated the same as our world. Characters have their own alignments and stories, and combat is dangerous and small mistakes can lead to death. It really feels like a legitimate fantasy world that people inhabit. Now, one thing I really wanted to mention, especially to people who won't play this game, is a spoiler, so only listen to this if you're okay with a major story spoiler and also something really unique that I haven't seen in most games. Alright, you've been warned. As you go through the dungeons, the characters die in events, and you can't save them. They may be NPCs, but they feel like real characters in a perilous expedition, and as they die, no one has time to mourn, and they just carry out their duty. You eventually reach the end, kill the great demon, but everyone, including the king, has died in the process, except for you. Would you have done something different to save them? When returning to town, you're arrested and later executed for desertion, and it's game over. But then, you wake up, right back at the very beginning of the game. Everything you've been doing up to this point, all of the time you spent, was essentially the tutorial, and you reverse time to the start. You keep your items, levels, and party members, but now you have to save everyone integral to rescue the king and change history, and enemies are stronger. As you progress, you learn the ability to jump through time to specific points before events or decisions to alter them, and even dialogue options can change all the following events. Your knowledge from the previous loop also allows you to open up extra dialogue or quests, and everything is in order to save everyone to rescue the king. Eventually, when you're done with the first major dungeon, the game opens up into multiple areas to explore and dungeons to conquer with a new town as well. They even have this giant Path of Exile-esque skill tree where you can gain passives or even new classes by traversing it, and it has a free reset every day. The sheer amount of content in this game is honestly shocking me because it's hard to expect so much out of a gacha game on launch, and shows that you can make a gacha that actually respects the player rather than doing the absolute minimum as a cash grab. This game as a whole was created by a passionate team who knew that they could only have continued the series if it was guaranteed to make money, so they decided on making a gacha. In the first month, it was reported in an article that it made over $5 million, and for such an insanely niche game no one's heard of outside of Japan, I think that's fine. I hope we can see more games like this that show a clear vision and passion of them, rather than much of the slop we see every single day. Finally, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a bunch for watching, consider subscribing to the channel for more, and I hope to see you next time.